Okay, we do have I am expecting a full house today, so I'm going to wait just another minute or two to see if anybody else wants to show up before we go ahead and get started. But even after waiting a minute or two, we should be able to get through everything in an hour, maybe even a little bit sooner. So, I also want to let you know, and the people who are going to come in after I say this are not going to benefit from it, but I am actually recording today's session. We do archives of one of each of our trainings per semester and put it up online for people who aren't able to make it to a face-to-face training. They can still hear me and see what I'm going to be pointing to on the screen. So just keep that in mind when you're asking questions and things like that. I will try not to use your names if you prefer I not, but your questions will likely be heard. This right here is a microphone, and it's pointed directly at me, but it will likely pick you up as well. So. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for coming. Today's session is tips and tricks for improving your efficiency with Google Apps. My name is Matthew Evans. I'm an instructional design and technology specialist here on campus. The office that I work with is just down the hall here on the third floor, called Advanced Learning Technologies. And our focus on campus is to work with faculty in group training such as this, as well as one-on-one consultations for integrating technology the best possible way into your education. And so we also work with faculty members on course designs. So if you're interested in redesigning a course or putting a course that you're currently teaching online, the instructional designers here are tasked with helping through that process. Today's session is going to take just about an hour, and we're going to be talking about some of the maybe hidden secrets through the use of Google Apps. So some of the settings that you may not know existed, some of the extensions that you may not know existed, and the best ways that you might be able to use them in your daily life. This session has nothing to do with courses, so we have faculty here, we have staff here. This session is completely about your personal productivity. We do have a session that we're offering starting next week that is how to integrate Google Apps into your courses. That one is more geared towards faculty members. But today's session is really for everybody. So whether you're faculty or staff, welcome. So let's get started with some of the things that we're not going to be talking about today. I am not going to walk you through how to send an email in Google. I'm not going to walk you through how to create a calendar event in Google. we can, if you're interested in that, I'm more than happy to sit down with you one-on-one and work you through that. But this training really has a prerequisite that you know how to navigate through Gmail and Google Calendar. Aside from that, we are going to be talking about in depth some of the extensions in Google Mail, Calendar, and a couple of things you may or may not know about Google Docs and Drive. So those are the three tools that we're primarily going to be focused on today. There are several videos that you can watch online about what Google Apps is and what all is entailed with it. Google Apps is actually a suite of approximately 10 to 12 different applications, including Google Mail, Calendar, Docs, but there's also YouTube. You may not know that YouTube is owned by Google and is part of their suite. Also, things like Google Maps, Google Earth. There's a variety of tools that Google owns that you may or may not be interested in. Some of them we have turned on in our Miami OH setup for Google Apps, but I encourage you to take a look at some of the extra ones that we won't be covering here today. Okay? So let's go ahead and just jump right in. If you're not already at My Miami, go ahead and head there first. If you're like me, you may just be used to going directly to gmail.com and entering in your email address. If you've done that in the last 2 weeks, you'll notice that that no longer works. It actually redirects you back to My Miami. The university really wants you to utilize My Miami, and so they're starting to send everybody there as a launching pad to get to other applications like your email and calendar, as well as Nika. So go ahead and log into My Miami if you haven't already. And then on the left-hand side under Quick Tools, there is a mail link here. And that's what you're going to utilize to access your email system. We are working on getting some additional links put in here for Calendar and Google Drive so that you don't have to go into your email first if you're really just focused on getting to your calendar. We do realize that is an efficient use of space, and so we're working on getting that in there. But for the time being, if you go ahead and click on Mail, it'll take you right into your Gmail. And let me go ahead and resize this. There we go. Okay. So obviously, this is the main interface. On the left-hand side here are some mailboxes that you may have. If you hover over, there's actually a More button here. If you hover over that or click on that, you'll see it expands and shows you some additional mailboxes. In the center box, center area, you have all of your messages. Obviously, you're probably pretty familiar with that. What we're going to start focusing on right now is we're just going to jump into the settings. So on the far right-hand side, there's a gear at the top. And if you click on that gear, you have several different options. You can go ahead and click on settings if you'd like, but there's one thing I'm going to show you first, and that is you have display density. If you're anything like me, I like seeing as many messages as possible at one time. And so what I've done is the default is actually set for comfortable, but you could also change it to cozy or compact, which changes the landscape of your site. Okay, so you have the ability to maximize the space by viewing more messages if you switch it to compact. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go right into settings. When you get into settings, first of all, how many of you have played around in the settings at all? A little bit? Okay. So on the settings here at the very top, you've got a series of about 8 different links. Okay, we're going to go through about half of them. But the first thing we're going to start off with is General, which is the default place that you land on when you go to Settings. And I'm just going to walk you through 3 or 4 things on each of the tabs that we're going to cover, just to give you an idea of some of the things that you can do with your Gmail. Okay. The first thing, if you've scrolled down a little bit, is Default Reply Behavior. And what this does, if you typically get copied or included on messages with a lot of people without using a listserv, what happens when you hit the reply button in your email? Does it just go back to the sender, or do you want it to default go back to everybody in the group? Now, obviously, if you're if you just have an email conversation between you and one other person, the functionality is not going to change at all. But this really applies to when you are included on a message of two or more other individuals besides yourself. Okay. The next thing is Conversation View. I offered this training last week, and one person in there said that they had Conversation View turned off. If you were around when we used Outlook and Microsoft Exchange, or if you're a Mac person, you may have been on Entourage or the latest version of Outlook for Mac. That setup does not use conversation view. So what you're looking at on that screen is one line for every message in your inbox. Okay. What happens here with conversation view is it actually groups your messages by conversation. So if I go into my inbox and I go down here to, so I have an email down here between somebody named Derek and myself. And you'll see that after that there's a number 2 in parentheses. This conversation has had 2 messages sent back and forth. Okay? So if I click on that, what I'll see is, up here at the top, this is the original message. And so if I click on that, it will expand and it will show me what that original message was. But then I can scroll down the page and see all of the responses that have followed within the same conversation. Okay? So it's a great way to condense what you're looking at. If you get a lot of messages about a variety of different projects and classes, I like to have all of my messages in conversation view because it allows me to see as many different possible topics at a time. Irene?
So is the conversation grouped according to what the subject is?
Yeah, normally it's the subject, and if you do subject, that will always be the case. I've seen it at times where it will group by conversation based on something that was in a reply. So if somebody replied to my message, Google saw that my original message was below it. It knew that it was part of the same conversation and grouped it together.
So is the default on or off?
The default is on.
Yeah, I must have turned mine to off. So do all the messages in the conversation just refer back to each other?
Yes.
Like that?
Yeah, so what you'll see down here, and this is my response to the message that I received. You'll see this is the actual response of what was typed. And then down underneath it, there's a little box with 3 dots in it. And if I click on that, it will show me the original message.
So if you went in anywhere on, not the one you went in on, but one of the other ones, they also point back to each other.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Does this change the order of your inbox?
Yeah, well, to a sense, yes. Because what it will do is it will take the conversation that has the very last reply or the very last message and put it at the top. So what you're used to is the last message coming in, regardless of what the conversation is at the top of your inbox. This does it the same way, except the conversation that has the latest response is at the top of your inbox. So in a sense, yes, it does. Okay. All right. A little bit further down from actually the one right underneath conversation view is send and archive. We'll get into a minute what archiving is, but basically, I like to have as few messages in my inbox as possible. I put them in folders, I label them, I get them out of my inbox. That way, all the messages in there are only things that I have to deal with, okay? Not things that I've already dealt with. And so, what Google does is it has a function called archiving, which basically means it takes the message out of your inbox without deleting it. Okay? It still saves onto the message, and I'll show you where to access that in a few minutes. But this is a great way to get rid of messages that you don't necessarily need to have access to right away, but you may still need to reference at a later time. Okay? And so the setting here for send and archive is when you press the send button to send a response to somebody, what do you want that send button to do? Do you just want it to send the response? Or do you want it to send the response and then have Google automatically archive it and take the message out of your inbox? Okay. So that's what that functionality does.
And you push show for that?
Yes, if you want it to automatically archive it after you send the message, then yeah, you'll do show.
And you'll show us where it goes?
Yeah, I can do that.
Wait, so you would have to like label it first, right? Or whatever in your system?
Correct.
Before you hit send.
You don't necessarily have to label them before you archive them.
But if you want to put it in your, like, if you have folders that you organize like
yeah,
you find it easier
if you do use labels, you'll need to label it before you hit the send button. Correct. Yeah. So what I did was I went ahead and I turned send and archive on right now. And so if I do, let's say this message right here, and I go down, I hit reply, you'll notice that I have 2 send buttons now. The first one is what the typical send feature does. It just sends the message, that's it. The second one says send, and it has Google's icon for archiving. So if you press that, then it's going to send whatever reply you put in here, and then it's automatically going to take this message out of your inbox. Okay? Again, it doesn't delete the message, it just takes it out of your inbox. Okay?
And if I send
still able to see it.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, and I will show you how to find all of those messages in a little bit. Yes. Okay. The next one is the vacation responder. So in the Outlook system, you had to do it in Outlook, create your vacation responder, or you could log into the website. It was a MU Connect website, and set your vacation response there. This is where you would set it in Google Mail. Okay, you just turn it on, set the first day and the last day, the subject, whatever you want that message to be, and then you have two options below that. If you choose to select them, what's going to happen is the first one is only going to send a response to people in your contact list. Okay, which means if somebody is sending you something that's not in your contact list, they're not going to get a vacation response from you. The second one is only send a response to people in the Google Apps at Miami University. That means anybody who's using miamioh.edu email will get one of these responses. Okay. If you don't select either of these, then everybody will get it, whether they're at Miami or not, whether they're in your contact list or not. Okay.
Are you going to talk about contact list?
I'm not going to cover contact list in depth, but if you're interested, we could set up, I know you've got to leave right after, but we could set up a time to go through your contact list.
Thank you.
The last thing I want to talk about in the General tab is the signature. The signature is a little tricky. Okay. At first glance, it's a normal signature. What do you want to be appended to the end of your messages? Okay. So right now I just have it says this is a test signature, but I could, put my name, put my office location. And then every time I send a message, it's automatically going to put this signature at the end of it. Now here's the tricky part. If you send a message from your Google Mail to another user who is using Google Mail, whether they're at Miami or not, if they're going to Google to access their mail, Google has this little function that some people aren't very fond of that actually removes the signature by default. Okay? Now, this only applies if you're sending messages to somebody else who uses Google for their mail. If you're sending it to somebody who uses Microsoft Outlook to check their mail, or an iPad or an iPhone, this is not going to impact them at all. Only if you go to Google's website to check mail will this be impacted. Okay, so let me show you what happens. I actually sent this, this is actually a training account that I use, and I actually sent myself a test signature email. So if I click on this, you'll see that there is no signature present. There's no text present, but that's because I didn't type anything. But the important part is that there's no signature there. And the reason for that is because I am using Google Mail to check my messages. Now, there's a way, if you see something like this and you expect there to be a signature, there's a way to see what that signature looks like. Right underneath the message, there's a little box with 3 dots on it, similar to what I showed earlier with the original message in a reply. If you click on that, it will show you the signature. Okay? But by default, and don't ask me why because I have absolutely no idea, but for some reason, Google truncates the signature off of messages if they're received by people using Google Mail. There's a way around this, and I'm going to show you how in a couple of minutes. But this is the default behavior. Jackie?
Some people are really uncomfortable with signatures because some of them include images, like the logo of the university or the institution they work with. How can you avoid it?
There's not really much you can do. If you receive an email that has an image in it, Google, I believe by default, actually strips out that message or that image, and you have to tell it that it's okay to see that image. And that's just a security setting within Google Mail. But there's not really much you can do to prevent something like that happening.
I don't have mine enabled, but I think it thinks my name is my signature. So when I type emails, I don't ever see my name anymore at the bottom.
Is it?
It's fine, except I keep writing it again because I think I forgot to sign my name.
Is your name in the signature box? So if you go into the settings in your Google Mail and scroll down to signature, is your name in this box?
It's weird. No, it's not. And I don't. I have it as no signature because I don't send a signature. And I thought I was going crazy. So thank you very much for telling me. At least in this case, I'm not crazy because my name is disappeared. Qualify it. I mean, it could be other things I'm crazy about. But really, I I lately noticed my name doesn't show up.
Is there any kind of characters that you put before your name? Like, do you do something similar to this, where you have 2 hyphens and then your name on a new line? No? That's something we might need to take a look at then.
Yeah, I mean, it's not critical. I'm just glad to know it's not me.
Right. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, there's a way around Google truncating your signatures, and I'll show you how to do that in a couple of minutes. But just be aware that that's what happens if you use the signature box. Okay. The next thing is filters. And filters and labels kind of go hand in hand. Filters is a way to have Google automatically delete messages that come in if they're from a certain user, or automatically file messages in a certain folder if they're from a specific group of people. And it's just a way for Google Mail to essentially filter out your email for you. But the most common way that filters are used is to label messages that pertain to a specific topic. Okay. Now, how many of you, when we are on Outlook or in any other mail system, have used folders to file your messages away? Okay. If you don't like deleting messages, you need to keep them for later on. Everybody does it. Okay. Google Mail does not use folders. Okay. Now, you're probably looking at me fairly crazy because you can see that there are folders here on the left-hand side. These are actually not folders. These are called labels. Okay. The only difference, in my opinion, between folders and labels is that in Google Mail, one email message can fall under multiple labels. Okay? As opposed to when you were in Outlook, one message could only go in one folder. Okay, that's not the case with Google Mail. Okay, so essentially think of it as one message can go into multiple folders if that's easier for you. Okay, but what you can do is in the settings on the second tab here is labels. And this lets you see all of the labels that Google has created for you, or the ones that you've created if you've played around with this at all. At the very top are system labels. These are things like your inbox, your sent mail, your drafts folder. Okay. As you go further down the list, at the very bottom you'll see a heading that says labels. And if you've never played with labels before, right underneath that you'll see a button that says create new label. If you've used labels before, you'll see a list of the labels you've created here. But what I can do is, if I create a new label, let's say I'm teaching a class, and I'm teaching, I usually use English 111 just because it's the most common class on campus. Okay, so let's say I'm teaching English 111. All I have to do is create a label, give it whatever name I want. You can click this checkbox and nest it, which basically means you could have one folder with several subfolders. So you can do that in Google. But then I'm just going to click Create. Well, you'll notice on the left-hand side, I now have a label with English 111 Fall 2013. At this point, I could go back to my inbox and start labeling any of the messages that have come from my students or anything related to this course as English 111 Fall 2013. So for example, if I have, let's say, these 3 messages right here, let's say all 3 of those were from my students, all from the same class. What I can do is, if I click the checkboxes next to all 3, there is actually a folder button up here at the top. Okay. Now, if you hover over it, it says Move To. What that means is Google's going to take the message out of your inbox and put it inside of that folder. Okay. And if I click on it, I can select which folder it is. Okay. Now, there are also maybe times when you'll want to label a message but not remove it from your inbox. Okay? If that's the case, then you're going to choose the second one. It looks like a price tag. If you click on that, it will let you apply a label but keeps the message in your inbox. Okay? So if I wanted to do that, all I would have to do is click on the label, go down here to English 111 Fall 2013, and hit Apply. And what you'll notice in my inbox, right in front of the subject line, it now says English 111 Fall 2013.
Does that mean it's both in that one and in your inbox?
Yes. Yes. Same message is in both places.
The system automatically place them in that folder that you created?
Yes.
So my labels are
Well, you may be using labels, but you may are your messages still in your inbox?
yeah, because I have CWC in one of my courses,
Mm-hmm.
new labels, and nothing came in.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that's probably something we'll have to take a look at. But what you can do is once you've labeled them and you're ready, let's say you label them and 3 days later you come back, you're done with these messages, you can go up here to the very top and this first button says archive. Now this is exactly what we talked about earlier. It removes the messages from your inbox so that they are only located inside of this label that you have it set as. So if I click archive, those 3 messages are no longer in my inbox. But if I go over here to this label that I have created, the messages are located there.
I'm sorry, Matt. Can you tell me how it knows which label to go into again? Why did I miss that?
Well, if I have a message and I label it as, yeah, I'm sorry, this is the step you missed. Yeah, in the inbox, if you click on the messages, click on the little price tag icon, you can assign which label it gets. And now remember, some of these are system created labels like promotions. I don't really use that all that much. But let's say I have those 2. And of course promotions is not going to show up here because it's being weird. But if I had multiple labels here and then I hit archive, the messages would be located in both of the labels. So that makes sense? Okay. And so what you can do, I mentioned earlier about filters. Once you have your labels created, you can say anything with a subject line of this, have Google automatically label it as this label. So it takes away some of the time. Yes?
How do I make it show the archives icon?
Oh, the archive button?
Yeah.
You have to have a message checked.
Oh, only. Okay. Yeah.
Okay? All right.
So if I don't label it, where do I find that message that I archive?
So if you choose not to use labels, but you still want to have a clean inbox and you just use the archive without using the labels, if you go over here to the left-hand side, I mentioned earlier there was a More button. If you click on More, one of the options is All Mail. This is everything. Okay? So regardless of what label it's listed as, regardless of what mailbox it's listed there. Now what you can do is you can customize the order in which labels appear. So what you can actually do is tell it, I don't want to have to go to More every time I see that. I want All Mail to be up here. And you can do that in settings. Okay? Alright. The next thing we're going to talk about are labs. Has anybody played with the labs at all? No? Labs are experimental tools that have been added to the Google Apps. Okay. Some of these tools are excellent. I'm going to walk you through, I think, 3 of them that I highly recommend. But because they are labs and because they're experimental, if something happens with these labs, Google wants to hear about it, but sometimes there's not a whole lot they can do. Okay. And there are times when some of these labs are overwhelmingly excellent, and so Google removes them from the labs and makes it a core part of Gmail as a whole. Okay? So when we look at these labs, it's important to know that the list of labs is constantly changing. Okay? There is a lab that you may be using now that won't be there next week. So you've got to keep that in mind. The 3 labs that I'm going to walk you through are ones that have been there for a long time, and I don't anticipate them going away anytime soon. Okay? So to access the labs, we're going to go back to the settings. So the gear button at the top right where we were before. And then all the way on the right-hand side, 3rd from the end, is labs. Okay. This list is alphabetical by title. So you can kind of read through and see some of the things that are available. The first one that I'm going to recommend is canned responses. So if you go down to the C's, canned responses. This lab was originally designed for people who send the same email over and over and over again. They just wanted to type it once, and then anytime they need to use it, they can just select it from a list. Google automatically adds it into the message, and you can send the message. Okay? This is my recommended alternative for signatures. A signature is essentially that, a piece of text that you send over and over and over again. So why not create a canned response of your signature? This is the way around Google truncating your signatures also. because Google thinks that this is a normal part of the response or the message. So if I turn on or enable that canned response and then scroll down to the bottom and choose Save Changes, it's going to reload your screen. You're not going to notice any differences right here. This is all the same. The only time you're going to see a difference is when you're composing a new message. Okay. And so right off the bat, it looks pretty similar, and as you would expect. So let's say I'm going to send this message to myself. Oops, if I can spell my name correctly. And so actually, I missed a step there. So where do you find canned responses? At the very bottom, where there's the send button, and then you've got some text and attachment icons. The far right-hand side, you've got a trash can if you want to discard that draft. And right next to it, you've got an arrow. If you click on that arrow, you're going to see an option that says canned responses. Okay.
I don't know.
You don't have that? Did you turn on canned responses?
Oh, to do that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, it's only going to appear if you have that lab turned on. Okay. So the only option you see right now is it says new canned response. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new one. And so in this box right here, like I'm composing a message, I'm going to include my signature. Okay. That's my signature. Now I need to save that as a canned response. So I'm going to go down here to the arrow at the bottom right-hand corner and go to canned responses, and I'm going to choose new canned response. It's going to ask me to give it a name. I'm just going to call it signature. And that's all there is to it. You okay? No?
I think I did that before I enable here.
So enable there, and then scroll down to the bottom. And choose Save Changes. Yep. Yeah, some of the settings that you can change in Google don't require a save button. Some of them do. Labs is just one of those that does. Okay, so now that we've created this canned response, I'm actually going to discard this message. I don't need it anymore. Okay, now 2 days later, I'm back in my email and I need to send a message. Okay, so I click compose, I start typing. I want to add my signature. I go back to the arrow at the bottom right hand corner, canned responses, and now you have another option that says under an insert menu, signature. And so I can choose signature and it automatically inserts my signature. And Google thinks that this is part of your response, so it's not truncated. Okay?
I don't see much to help you edit the signature and add pictures or a label or do more fancy things.
So to edit the signature, so what I could do is I can bold my name. Well, hold on. Let me get rid of that. So if I wanted to bold my name in my signature, when I'm creating the canned response, next to the send button, there's a button that says formatting options, and I can bold it. I have some font sizes, some different fonts.
And you can add some stuff, photograph or...
Yep. So anything that goes inside this compose box becomes part of your signature. And so I have, I actually don't have it on this machine, but I use canned responses, and I have the Miami logo that I put underneath my signature, and it still works with canned responses. So you are able to do that. Okay. All right. The next lab that I'm going to recommend to you is the Google Calendar gadget. Google Calendar gadget. What this does is it adds a box over here at the lower left-hand corner, which oftentimes goes unused. But the box over here is going to show you a snapshot of your calendar. Okay, now when would you want to use this? If somebody sends you an email that says, hey, are you free tomorrow for lunch? Without having to open up a new window, go to your calendar, look, come back to mail and respond, it's all in one location. Okay, so if I go ahead and I enable that and then save. Now, when I hit save, you'll notice it comes back and there's no calendar here. For me, it just shows some people that I've contacted. At the very bottom, there's a little chat button that for me looks like it's pressed because it is. Next to it, there are 3 dots. If you click on that, that's when the gadget appears. Okay. Now on mine, I don't have any, I just have some holidays, but I don't have any actual events. But it would appear here as well. Okay. Now you can click on the events. It will show you some more information. Hey, Todd. So it will show you some more information. But then you can scroll back, down at the bottom, there's a little button here that says back. Okay. So if you click on the event and you're looking at more details, if you scroll, you'll have to scroll down just a little bit, but there are 2 links at the very bottom. One is more details and the other is back. If you click on back, it will take you back to the list view.
Matt, I
Yeah.
pressed the save changes and none of my things are showing up. Should I be refreshing or doing something different?
Once you hit save changes, if you have the buttons turned on, if you have them enabled, it should automatically start up.
Okay, because, wait a minute. I thought it did.
If you go to the top. So you can't just once it's turned on.
Yeah.
So
But-
okay.
And then I went to my emails. But I went to my emails and when I did it, it didn't show me
Yeah,
the little widget.
you got it open in 2 different windows.
Okay, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try.
So in the first window, if you hit refresh, it should show back up.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. The last lab I'm going to show you. If you were a huge Microsoft Outlook user, you're going to love this feature. Okay. So I'm going to go back to settings. I'm going to click on labs. If you're on the labs tab right now, scroll down to the P's. There's one called Preview Pane. So remember in Outlook, when you had the list of folders on the left-hand side, you had a middle column that showed you your messages. And if you clicked on the message, you had a preview pane that showed you the message without having to ever leave your current view. That's what this does. Okay, so if I enable it and hit Save Changes, you'll notice right off the bat there's nothing different. The only difference, now that I have that turned on, I have another button up here. And this is where you set how that preview pane looks. So if I choose vertical split, and then I can just click on the message, even in conversation view, I can just scroll through the messages.
That happened on the iPad when you check your email messages
Mhm.
automatically.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. So you can do a vertical split or you can do a horizontal split.
Where did we start from?
If you click on the gear
Right,
and then go to settings
right,
and then click labs,
right. And what was it called?
preview pane.
I did it,
You
but
click on
I
this.
forgot where I was.
Oh, okay.
I'm there, but I forgot.
Yep. So you scroll down to P's.
Oh, preview pane. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, I've already got it turned on, so it's up here.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Yes.
What's app search? App search is one of the labs there.
It lets you search for Google Docs and Google Sites that have been created. It's like using a Google search, but it limits the scope only to Google Docs and Sites. So one of the things you can do in Google Docs is you can make it publicly viewable to anyone in the world. And so basically Google has this running list of all the public docs. And so by typing in your search, whatever you want to search for, it will look through all of those public docs that you have access to and show you a list of results. All right. That was the last thing we're going to cover with mail. Okay. So what we're going to do now is at the top in the black bar, go ahead and click on Calendar. Or if you're like me, I have it open in another tab. Okay. Now, if you're a heavy Google Calendar user, this is going to look very different to you because I have absolutely nothing on here. Okay? I purposefully am not using my personal Google Apps calendar because it's going to put you all to shame. So I have nothing on here right now, which is fine. But some of the things that we're going to talk about are going to make your screen look a little bit different than mine just because of that. All right, I'm not going to cover anything on this main interface. Okay, nothing. We're going to jump right to settings. And don't follow what I'm doing for a minute. I forgot to turn off the labs from the last training. Okay, there we go. So we're going to click on the gear, and we're going to go to settings. All right, a few things that you have the ability to change. Current time zone. If you do a lot of traveling, or you go to conferences, and you use your calendar while you're there, it might be helpful for the calendar to be in the same time zone that you are. Okay?
Oh, that can be confusing too. Sometimes people will invite me to meetings back here, and I add them to my calendar when I'm in a different time zone. I get all confused.
Yep. So what you can do is, I've done some conferences out in California, so I could set this to Pacific Coast if I wanted to, or Pacific time zone. But you can also set it to show multiple time zones, so that when you're viewing your calendar, you can easily change time zones. If you're creating an event and you happen to be in a different time zone, you can specify what time zone this event is going to occur in. Okay, which is very helpful if you're scheduling something at 3 in the or at let's say 5 in the morning Pacific time, and it's really 8 in the morning here. You don't want to freak out your colleagues.
That's incredibly nice.
Yeah. Okay, so you can change your time zone. The date and time format. If you prefer your dates looking a specific way, if you want to use military time, you can. Those are options for you. Default meeting length. This, I believe, by default is set to 60 minutes. At least it is on this one. But you can change that depending on what types of meetings you are most likely to schedule. Okay. There's also an option below that says speedy meetings. And what that is, when you create a meeting that is an hour long, Google changes it to 50 minutes. Okay? With the idea that that extra 10 minutes is built in for people to change from one meeting to the next. So if you're booked from 8 to 5 in different meetings, you need time to get between buildings or between floors, this is a great tool to use. Now keep in mind that most people don't know that this feature exists, and most people have a hard time condensing their meetings to 50 minutes. So just because it says in your calendar it's 50 minutes doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last 50 minutes. But that's mostly for your benefit. Okay? If you do happen to schedule a meeting using this and it's only a 30-minute meeting, Google changes it to 25 minutes. So, all right. Some people like their weeks to start on Mondays. As far as a calendar look goes, you can set that here. You can also set what your working hours are. Okay. Benefit to this, my hours in the fall, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. You would be surprised at how many people try to schedule a meeting for me from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Doesn't happen. Because I don't let them. It does happen often, though. So what I do in here is I set my working hours, 7 to 4. And that way, if somebody tries to schedule a meeting with me outside of those times, they get a warning message. Okay. Now, it doesn't stop them from scheduling it. It just gives them a warning message. Okay. You can also dim past and future events. So if you have so much going on one day that you don't even want to pay attention to what you had yesterday or what you have tomorrow, if you click those check boxes, then the current day is more pronounced than the others. You can still see them if you really need to, but they're kind of faded out. Okay. Show weekends. If you use your Google Calendar for personal things as well as work, you may want this to be yes. I personally don't, so I have it set to no. My office doesn't ever do anything on the weekends, so I don't have a need to have it up there. Okay. You can set what your default view is, so you can either do week, day, month, or you can do the agenda, which is just a long-running list and separated out by day. So it'll have, well, I can show you what it's going to have. Agenda. So this is essentially what it looks like. So on September 2nd, this is what I had. Okay. Now this is what the default is. You don't have to go in there every time you want to change it. Like right now, I could go over here and I could change it back to week view if I wanted to. Okay. All right. You can have it show weather based on your location. You can have it show events that you've declined. This may happen quite a bit for you. I know it does for me. I get booked for meetings. I get double booked for meetings. And I have to choose between one or the other. So I choose one, but I still want to know that the other one is happening. So I have my calendar set to yes. Any event that I decline, I still want it to appear on my calendar. And basically what it does, it puts it on there, but the title has a strike through. So you can still read it, and you know that you're not going to it, but that way you're still informed. Okay. Any questions about the settings? Okay. Next thing we're going to do is sharing. How to share your calendar and what the different sharing options are. So if you go back to settings, just where we were before, the second tab at the top, it says calendars. Okay. So from here, you can see at the very top, these are your calendars. These are calendars that you can create and modify. Underneath are the calendars that you've been given access to from somebody else. So a secretary, your chair, colleagues. Okay. At the very top, the first one is probably going to have either your name or your unique ID. Okay. Based on what it says here, I'm guessing it's your name. Over on the far right-hand side, you have a sharing column and a link there. And if you click on that, that allows you to change who has access to your calendar. At the very top, it says share this calendar with others. Turn that on. Make this calendar public. What that means is anybody outside of Miami can see this calendar. If you have a spouse who does not work at Miami and you want to share your calendar with them, that's unfortunately going to be the best way to do it. Okay. Now, there are other implications of that as well, so keep that in mind. That anybody outside the university can see it if they have the link. It's not searchable. They can't find it on Google or Yahoo. But if they have the link, they can see your calendar. The second option is share this calendar with everyone in the organization. Everybody who uses miamioh.edu. This by default is turned on, and the setting that it's selected to is show only free busy. That means if somebody tries to schedule a meeting with you, they can see that you're busy at this time and free at another time, but they can't see the details of the events. They can't see the title, they can't see who's invited, they can't see when and where it is. Well, they could see when if they're trying to schedule a meeting with you, but they can't see where it is. Okay. The other option is see all event details. That means anybody at the university could look up your calendar and see you are meeting with the chair at this time. Okay. I recommend you turn that off and set it only to see only free busy. Okay. That's a global setting. Now, you can share your calendar with specific individuals who have additional privileges. Okay? So, if I wanted to share my calendar with Irene, I could just type in her email address in this box here. And then what permission settings does that person get? Can they see only free busy? Well, that kind of defeats the purpose, because they could already do that.
I have a naive question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I use Google, the calendar. I have my own account before Miami migrated over to this.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at my Miami calendar, I see events. I have it set up so I can see events from my other Gmail account on my Miami calendar.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering, can other people see my other events that weren't entered originally in That doesn't sound, that sounds confusing. I guess I'm wondering if I share events across calendars in my Miami calendar, can everybody see all of the events? Like,
could I see the events on your Miami calendar?
Yes, if they aren't actually entered in the Miami calendar,
then
if they're shared from a different account.
No.
Is there a way to make that happen?
No. So the question is, and this is sort of leading into one of the next things, but you can actually have multiple calendars inside your Google account. Okay, so you could have a professional calendar and a personal calendar all within your Miami OH account. Okay, only one calendar per account can be shared across the organization. Okay, so if I had a personal and a professional calendar inside here, I would want my professional calendar to be the one that's shared across everything, across the network. Okay. So any event that is on the secondary calendar does not show up when somebody's trying to schedule you for a meeting. So if you've got a personal calendar and at 5 o'clock on Wednesday you've got your son's t-ball game and somebody tries to schedule an appointment with you, they won't be able to tell that you're not around because it's not on the primary calendar that's being shared across the organization.
Where is the secondary calendar?
What you can do is if you go back here, on the main section, on the left-hand side there says My Calendars. There's a little arrow next to that. If you click on that, you can create a new calendar.
It has a name as opposed to main calendar. It's
Correct. You can call this personal or family calendar or whatever you want to call it. But keeping in mind that this calendar is only for you. Nobody else at Miami can see it.
I can delete one of those calendars since you created.
Okay. So to delete a calendar, you're going to go back into settings where we just were. So I'm going to click on calendars here. And if I have multiple calendars here, I would have a link here that says delete. Because this is my primary calendar, I don't have that. But there should be a delete link somewhere in that area. Unsubscribe is only for the calendars that have been shared with you. So if you have not created the calendar, you can't delete the calendar. You can remove it from your view, but then the owner still has access to it. Okay. All right. So we've covered sharing. The last thing I want to show you before we get into the labs is the reminders and notifications. There are two things that I want to show you with this. So from this calendars view, from this area here, next to your calendar, we're going to click on reminders and notifications. Okay. I said there were two things here that I wanted to point out to you. The first one is at the very top. By default, remind me via blank, blank, blank before each event. Okay. So how do you want to be reminded? Do you want a pop-up notification on your screen? Do you want an email sent to you as a reminder? I typically like pop-up notifications. And then how many minutes or hours? Okay, let's say 15 minutes before each event. That's the default when you're creating new events. Now you can turn them off for certain events if you'd like to, but that's the default. You can also do multiple reminders. So let's say I want an email 1 hour before, just as a, hey, fair warning. But then, I get sidetracked and I'm talking to other people. Then I want to pop up 10 minutes before, saying, hey, you really need to go. Yes?
I have a problem that I get everything double. And I only have one calendar, because I only knew how to make one calendar.
Okay.
But, I get popped up twice for the same meeting, and, on my calendar frequently, Labor Day came up twice, and I only celebrated it once.
The reminder came up twice, or it's just on your calendar twice?
It's on my calendar and the reminder.
Okay. That is likely, there could be a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is when they migrated the calendars from the old Exchange system into here, some of the events got doubled. There is also a calendar that everybody at Miami is subscribed to that is Miami holidays and academic calendar or something like that. So it might be on your personal calendar, but it's also on the university calendar because it's a holiday. So that may be why it's on there twice. We can look at it afterwards if you're interested.
You get to have another appointment with me.
Okay.
If I feel like I'm living a double life.
All right. The last thing I wanted to point out here. You can get email or text message notifications when any of these types of things occur. Okay. There's only one that I'm actually going to recommend. You may be interested in the others, but there's only one I'm going to recommend. And that is the daily agenda. Only available by email. It is sent at approximately 5 a.m. every day by Google. I pretty much live and die by this agenda because I do from trainings to consults to class presentations to meeting with administration. I need to know when I wake up in the morning, can I wear jeans or do I need to wear a suit and tie? So the first thing I do when I wake up before I get in the shower is I open up my email and I have within 15 minutes, because I'm usually up before my alarm, before this gets sent out. But within 10 or 15 minutes, I have an email from Google that shows me my agenda for the day. Okay, I don't have to open my calendar. I don't have to do anything else. It's just an automatic every day. Okay, and so what I'm actually going to do is show you what it looks like. Okay, any questions about notifications? Okay, we're going to move on to labs, and we're going to try to get through this fairly quickly. All right, the gear icon, oops, back at the calendar. Okay, so if you click on the gear, there is labs down here. Don't ask me why, but for some reason, Google put labs in the drop-down menu on calendars, but not on mail. I have absolutely no idea. But labs is there. And there are 3 labs here that I'm going to point out really quickly. The first one is next meeting. And if I turn that one on and hit save, it's going to show me over here.
On my calendar settings.
You may have it there as well.
Oh, so it's in both.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing in both places. For some reason, Google didn't put labs in the drop-down menu under settings in mail. Yeah. And I'm not sure why, but this is cutting in and out. Okay, so what I did was I turned on that next meeting lab, and over on the right-hand side here, I have a section, it's just right here, this is all it is, and it says next meeting. For me, I have no events. The nice thing is if you actually have things on your calendar, it will tell you how long do you have before your next meeting. So if you're trying to decide if you have time to run out to lunch, that's an easy way to find out. Okay. The other one that I'm going to point out is hide morning and night. What you'll notice if you look at your calendar is my day starts at 12 a.m. I never have anything scheduled at 12 a.m. I don't know about you. In fact, most of my day doesn't start till 7 a.m. And of course, on this calendar, I don't really have a day. And I never have anything scheduled after 4 or 5 p.m. I don't need to see 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Okay? So what I can do is if I go to labs, and I can turn on this one that says hide morning and night, and then save. What you'll see is between, right above 8 a.m., I have this little more pronounced bar right here. And then also underneath 5 p.m., I have this little bar here. If I click on that bar, oh, okay. So you drag the bar to where you want it to cut off. So let's say I don't want to see anything after 6 p.m. So I dragged that bottom bar to 6 p.m. and it automatically condensed everything from 6 p.m. to midnight. Okay. Up here at the top, it also condensed everything from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. So if you have this little bar here right above 8 o'clock,
Yes.
So you just click and drag it to whatever hour. Okay. All right. The last thing I'm going to cover really quickly, because we are just about out of time, is Google Drive. How many of you are using Google Docs, spreadsheets, Drive? How many of you are using Drive? Okay, more than I expected. How many of you don't know what Drive is? How many have a vague idea of what Drive is? What if I told you Drive is not the same as Docs? Does that confuse you even more?
I thought I read that
Okay.
there used to be called Docs and now it's called Drive.
Okay, so Google Docs was the original product, and that allowed you to create cloud documents and spreadsheets that were stored in the cloud. You didn't need to have Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel in order to be able to view them. Okay, now fast forward a couple of years. Now they have Drive. Drive is a product that is the challenger to Dropbox. If you have the Dropbox app on your computer, okay, it essentially, when you download it onto your machine, it gives you an extra folder that you can save documents into, and when you do, it automatically syncs them with the cloud, so that you have access to those documents regardless of where you are. Okay, so if I'm working on a syllabus for my class and I'm doing it in Microsoft Word, I can save that Microsoft Word file inside of Google Drive, and then I can go home at night and still have access to it if I need to. Okay, either by going to the Google Drive website or by downloading the application onto my computer. Okay, so Google Docs is kind of integrated within Drive. You now have the ability to create documents in the cloud, but you can also upload documents that are not created in the cloud to share and have access with other people. Okay, and so this is my Drive, my web version of Drive. Okay, if you've never used Drive before, you probably have this ad up here at the top that says download Drive. For me, it says for Mac. For you, it might say Windows, depending on what machine you're on. But that's how you go about downloading the folder onto your computer. If I wanted to create a file, I can click it right here, and it will ask me, do you want to create a folder, document, presentation, which is the PowerPoint alternative. And then what you can do is, once you've got those files and things created, you can share them. I'm going to close this ad here for a second. You can share those files, folders, whatever the case may be, with other people, whether they're within Miami or outside of Miami. Okay, just by clicking on the checkbox or checkboxes and then clicking the share button. So you'll see that several people have access to this folder. Okay, but the productivity piece here, which is the whole reason I'm bringing it up to you, is downloading Google Drive for your machine will save you a lot of time, because you can easily share files with other people. You have a central location to store your files. You don't need to carry around a flash drive with you anymore. This gives you 30 gigabytes of space. They don't make a flash drive that big. Okay? And if you use Google Docs to create your files, so let's say you go up here and you say create a document and you start typing your syllabus in here, this document does not count against your 30 gigs. It's 30 gigs of uploaded files. So Word documents, PowerPoints, images, movies. That's what counts against your space, not the documents you create in the cloud. Yes?
Can you use the Google Doc, this Word document, in Word itself?
Mm-mm. Excuse me. I'm not sure I fully understood the question, so let me tell you what it can do.
Okay.
If you've created a document in Microsoft Word and you want to convert it to Google Docs so that it's stored in the cloud and it's not using up your space, yes, it can do that. It will convert a document from Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel into the document spreadsheet presentation tools.
Oh my gosh, let me try to ask a question clearly.
Okay.
Since I didn't see that before. What if she took a file that was created in Word and dragged it to her Google Drive folder as a doc file? Then she can open it in Word. It counts against her, but
yes,
it would open just like a normal Word file.
Absolutely.
It just happens to be in the cloud.
Right.
So you drag it from...
Well, if you have, up here at the top, for me, I have it turned on. When you have it installed, it's a little triangle at the top of your screen. This is your Google Drive folder. So I've downloaded the application that it was giving me the advertisement for, and I have all of these folders. Now, they're not the same as what you see on the web here because this is my personal account. But I have folders here with different files, and you can see that this is a Word document, but it ends in .gdoc because it's a Google Doc, not a Word file. But yes, you could drag and drop Word files into this folder. It would sync with the cloud, and you can open it anywhere, presuming you have Microsoft Word.
Is it like Dropbox in the sense that there's a local file on my computer, and then it's also synced in the...
Yes, so
I don't have to be online to open these? Or
correct. So a question I got last week during this training was, if I'm doing some traveling, and I've got a file that I have shared with some of my colleagues who are not traveling, but I need to go on an airplane, do I have access to these files? The answer is yes. Your computer keeps a local copy of the file for you to edit, and since you're on an airplane, I'm assuming you don't have Wi-Fi on there, unless you're on one of those really fancy planes. It just will not sync your changes with the web version until you regain connectivity.
So this is just like Dropbox. It's very similar.
It's identical to Dropbox. The only difference is now you can create files in the cloud as well. Yes?
So if I had I'm using a form. I have the responses to the form, so I have I call it Excel, but
the spreadsheet
version. What if I wanted to take those responses and drop it into an Excel spreadsheet? Is that possible?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to open up a spreadsheet right here just to show you real quick.
Yes.
So let's say you've got some data in here.
Yes.
Go up to the File menu at the top.
Yes.
Download as.
Understood. Okay. Got it.
That's all there is to it.
And then I can just function in Excel as is?
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. That's great. Thank you.
So the first thing though is we have to download Google Drive to your PC. Do we have to do that first?
No, you don't have to. Because if you're more comfortable, let's say you use library machines a lot and they don't have Google Drive installed, you don't want to download every time. If you have a Word document you're working on your computer and you just want to upload that one file into the cloud, you don't have to download the application. From within this interface, there's an upload button right here.
But
so you
how
can.
did you get there? If you didn't,
if you log into My Miami and you go into your Google system, at the
Right.
top you click on Drive.
Yeah, I'm there.
That takes you here.
But mine says download Google Drive to your PC.
Yeah, at the top right-hand corner of that little advertisement, there's an X, and that's all I did was I just closed the advertisement.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to do that to start using.
No,
this first.
not at all.
But I should do this.
It depends how many files you're dealing with. I mean, I store everything in the cloud because I have multiple machines and I want to be able to access them on every machine.
Okay.
If you typically deal with one or two computers, it may not be necessary. And if you're only dealing with one or two files at a time, it may not be necessary. But if you choose not to do that, you can use this upload button in the web version that will let you upload a Word document into Google Drive without needing the application. Yes?
What if I have a secondary Google account? Because I had synced that already before coming to Miami. I had synced that in my own computer. And I haven't tried to access that folder because I just do it from the interface.
Right.
But I'm just curious if it's possible now.
The Google Drive application that you download to your computer can only sync with one account at a time.
That's why I can't see both.
Yes. And so what you may have seen me doing during the training is I have actually been switching profiles on my computer. So I have a training profile that I use for today.
But
I also
that's both within Miami. Right.
well, yeah, the accounts are both on my computer. That has no impact on what my Google Drive is syncing with. So on this training account, I could go up to my Google Drive and let me see how to do it here. I can disconnect my account and then reconnect with my personal account. That way when I log in as my training account on the computer, I have my personal account, my personal information here. But if I log in as my other account, my professional account, I have my Miami Google Drive.
So when you're talking about the account when it's Drive isn't compatible with two accounts, that's mostly for uploading, that's not for viewing a shared document, right?
Correct. So you can open up a web browser, log in as your personal Gmail account, and still see a shared document. This only refers to syncing the folder that's downloaded onto your computer.
Okay.
Yes.
So the login not necessarily is through Miami, your Miami account. You can have the other account and still having access to the Drive.
If you have two different Google accounts, yeah, What you have to do is there's no way to use the Google Drive application that you download with both accounts at the same time. So what I typically recommend is just sharing one set of folders with your personal account or vice versa, and that way you have access to it regardless of which Google account you're signed in as. It's a little cumbersome at first, I understand, but what I've actually personally done, and I'm hesitant to say this because we're recording, but for Google, I only use my Miami account. For personal things, like I share files with my wife all the time, we use Dropbox for that. Okay. All right, we are 10 minutes past the time. That actually was the last thing that I had. So if you have additional questions, feel free to stick around. I'll be here for probably another 10 minutes or so. Otherwise, that's pretty much a wrap on this training. If you haven't already signed up or thought about signing up for the other session that we're offering, which starts next week, that is how to integrate some of the features of Google Apps into your course. Not necessarily specific to Nika, but we will be covering some integrations with Nika specifically. But we'll also be talking about just pedagogically how to use Google Apps with your educational uses. So feel free to sign up and do it quickly because those seats are going pretty fast. Thanks, everybody.